Hi guys, and welcome to my very quick, very easy tutorial on how to turn plain cardboard like these into cool and interesting pen holders like these. So the first thing you're going to need, of course, is a list of different cardboard rolls. You can use simple toilet paper rolls, or you can also use those long cardboard rolls that come inside of wrapping paper. You're also going to need a ruler as well as a pencil. As you can see, a lot of the pencils that I want to use these holders for don't actually fit in the smaller size cardboard, which is why at first I used the wrapping paper cardboard. The main advantage of this is that it can be cut to whatever length that you need. So especially since a lot of the pencils I want to use are quite long, the wrapping paper cardboard was the best option. So if you are using this, the first thing you want to do is to measure the distance that you want your pencil to go into the cardboard, and then using your ruler, mark out the distance that is and make similar distance lines around the roll. This is so you can join up each of the lines to make sure that you do end up cutting the cardboard in a straight line, because the last thing you want is a piece of cardboard that can't actually stand. Once that is done, it is time to take your scissors and cut that line. If you have a blade or a standing knife, this will probably be a lot easier, but please do be careful if you are using a scissors. With that done, it's time to cut around the edges just to neaten up the end of the cardboard and to make sure that it can stand, as well as making sure that you cut along the line you drew earlier so that your cutting is straight. As you can see, it's a perfect fit. With the first one done, I followed the exact same steps for the next two different pen holders. They are slightly smaller than the one previous, and you will see why in a moment, because it does give a really nice tiered look once they are all cut. So again, measuring out the distance along the cardboard, cutting it in half, and then smoothing out the edges so that each cardboard can stand. As you can see, they were still slightly too tall for some of my smaller pens, and especially the Tipp-Ex pen I usually use, so the final tube is the smallest of them all, and I did end up measuring the first one and the second one to get the distance between their heights, and then use the same distance to cut the final piece of cardboard. With that done, you can now see how they are evenly spaced from the tallest to the smallest. So the next thing I did was put an elastic band around them to hold them in the position that I wanted to glue them together with. So I used an elastic band at the top and an elastic band at the bottom, and it did take a bit of moving the bands to figure out how to keep them in a straight line. But when that part was done, I went back with my pencil and my ruler, and I measured out a straight line running from the longest cardboard to the shortest cardboard. This was so I could cut a triangle shaped piece out of each of them so that they would flow in a smooth line down from the smallest to the tallest. With the measurements in place, I removed the elastic bands and then went back in with my scissors to cut along each line. I found that the easiest way to do this was to actually cut directly in as far as the line I marked, and then to make two slits on either side of that, hold back the cardboard and cut those off first. From there, it was a lot easier to cut around in the pretty awkward shaped circle that I had drawn out on each piece of cardboard. And again, once the line was cut, it did take a few small, warm minutes to just smoothen out those edges and to remove any piece of cardboard that were still sticking out. But once that is done, it was time to move on to the remaining two pieces of cardboard, again cutting out two small tabs before tracing the line that I made earlier. Now you can see how each of those lines actually match up with each other, from the tallest cardboard piece to the smallest cardboard piece. There were a few small adjustments I had to make again, so I did put back on the elastic bands so I could be sure that the lines I drew were straight. And once those measurements were in place, I went back with my scissors and cut them out to make sure that all the lines were smooth. Finally, it is on to the decorating stage. So I did end up painting these and leaving them dry overnight. But of course you can use markers, you can use coloring pencils, you can use whatever it is you prefer to decorate them. I have a lot of small pots of paint such as these that I wanted to use up. So I ended up painting the cardboard in a rainbow fashion. And you will see in a moment how I marked out each of the sections in case you also want to do a lovely multicolored rainbow. So with the elastic band back in place to make sure the lines were straight, I divided each of the 3 walls into 3 different sections for each of the 9 different colours that I planned on using. The markings in place, I drew very faint straight lines around each of the 3 different rolls so that I would know exactly where each colour was meant to go. And here you can see the final product. As I said, I painted them and let them sit overnight so I could be sure that they were dry before moving on to the next step. So here is how the final rainbow looked. I also added some washi tape around the curved edges just to be sure that the cardboard wouldn't fray and also to cover up the small snips I had made while cutting them. So with that done, it is time to stick the different cardboards together. So again, with my pencil, I drew faint lines exactly where the glue needed to go. I did end up using Pritt Stick, which was not as strong as I had hoped. So if you are doing this, I would suggest using super glue or even sellotape if that's what you would prefer to use. Once I had glued the edges together, I did come back with the elastic bands, of course, and put them over the 3 pieces just to hold them together as the glue dried. Again, it did take a bit of maneuvering to keep them in the right place, but it definitely helped and the glue dried very, very quickly. The first set done, it's time to move on to the second set. These are the first toilet rolls that I showed you initially. I also painted them the day before and let them dry. And after that, it was time to determine how I actually wanted them to go. So initially I was planning on having them standing, but once I realized that they did make a really cute little pyramid, I decided to stick with that. So again, with the Pritt Stick, gluing them together, because there were different amounts of cardboard on the different layers, I couldn't use the elastic bands for every set, so it did take a lot longer for these guys to dry. Once they were dry, however, it was very quick to stick them all together into this cute little pyramid shape. Again, it was a bit awkward gluing them and finding the right levels, but it was definitely worth it in the end. So as you can see, they are all glued and they stick together perfectly. I also really like how this painted version came out. It runs from nighttime into daytime with each of the different stages of the day. And again, I have my rainbow piece that is now firmly stuck together thanks from the glue and the elastic bands. So that brings us to the end of the tutorial. So this is how it ends up looking. As you can see, all the different types of pens can fit in the different size layers. It is definitely something that I will be using in the future, both this rainbow version and also the daytime version. The one advantage of this is that it can stand, but it can also be put on its side. So do play around with the different pieces of cardboard and figure out what style fits you best. and what style will also fit on your desk best. So I hope you guys enjoyed this very quick and very simple tutorial. Let me know how it turns out for you. Also let me know any videos you'd like to see, and I will talk to you guys soon.